Have you ever wondered if the world you see is truly as it seems? Tonight, let's wander the labyrinth of your mind, where reality bends, time stretches, and memories flicker like candlelight. By the end, you might question everything. Shall we begin? Predictive processing. Reality is a controlled hallucination. Close your eyes. Picture a forest at dusk. The light is fading, branches creak in the wind, and somewhere in the shadows, a twig snaps. Your pulse quickens. Is it a predator? A lover? A trick of the wind? In that moment, your brain doesn't wait for answers. It invents a story. A story. So vivid, so urgent, you'll swear it's real. This is predictive processing, the brain's greatest magic trick. You see, your mind isn't a passive mirror reflecting the world. It's a prophet. A fortune teller hunched over a crystal ball, stitching reality from whispers of light, sound, and memory. Every sight, every sensation is a best guess, a hallucination polished by millions of years of evolution. Let me explain. Your brain is trapped in a vault of bone, forever cut off from the real world. All it receives are chaotic electrical signals, a Morse code of photons, vibrations, and chemicals. To survive, it must decode this noise into meaning. But here's the twist. It doesn't start from scratch. Like a detective with a pre-written script, it anticipates what's out there. Think of a child learning to catch a ball. At first, they fumble. But soon, their brain doesn't just see the ball. It predicts its arc, its speed, the exact millisecond their fingers must close. This prediction isn't a calculation. It's an embodied story. And this is how you navigate life. Your brain whispers tales of reality, and your body acts them out before the truth ever arrives. But sometimes the script falters. Have you ever sworn you heard your phone buzz, only to find it silent, or glimpsed a face in the folds of a curtain? That's your brain's hunger for patterns overriding raw data. In ancient times, mistaking a rustling bush for a lion kept you alive. Today, it turns ambiguous text messages into existential crises. Evolution's priorities haven't changed. Neuroscientists call this Bayesian inference, a fancy term for betting on reality. Your brain weighs past experiences against new sensations, then calculates the odds. If the math checks out, the hallucination sticks. If not, well, that's where prediction errors come in. Imagine biting into what you think is an apple, only to taste an onion. Your brain shrieks, recalculating, and updates its model. But most of the time, the edits are subtle. The world you perceive is a patchwork quilt, a blend of predictions and compromises. Here's where it gets eerie. Studies show that up to 60% of what you see is pure fabrication. Your eyes have a blind spot where the optic nerve exits the retina, but your brain fills it in like a painter touching up a canvas. When you move your eyes, the world doesn't blur, because your brain erases the motion and stitches the frames. Even your sense of self, the feeling of being you, is a controlled hallucination. A story told by neurons to keep the chaos at bay. Philosophers have wrestled with this for centuries. Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am." But predictive processing asks, are you thinking or being thought? If reality is a simulation, who's the programmer? Let's play a game. Stare at the candle on this desk. Notice how it dances, alive and restless. Now close your eyes. The afterimage lingers, a ghostly imprint. That's your brain, clinging to the prediction long after the stimulus fades. We are all, in a sense, dreaming together, agreeing on shared hallucinations we call the world. But every now and then, the veil slips. Déjà vu, phantom limbs, the hollow mask illusion where a concave face appears grotesquely convex. These are glitches in the matrix, moments when the brain's predictions clash with reality's quiet rebellion. So tonight, as you lie here, ask yourself, what else is your brain editing out? Smoothing over, inventing? The answer might unsettle you or set you free. After all, If reality is a story, who holds the pen? Is the universe a soliloquy or a conversation? And when you speak, does the world answer or merely echo? The illusion of transparency, the loneliness of hidden truths. Let me ask you something. Have you ever stood in a crowded room and felt invisible? Not unseen, but unknown, as though your thoughts were thunderclaps no one else could hear. Pauses, fingertips grazing the snow globe. This is the illusion of transparency, the haunting belief that our inner world bleeds outward, that our fears, hopes, and shames are etched in neon across our skin. But here's the truth. You are both more concealed and less alone than you dare believe. Let's unravel this. In 1998, psychologists Gilovich and Savitsky staged a simple experiment. They asked participants to wear embarrassing t-shirts, then enter a room of strangers. The wearers swore everyone noticed, yet in reality, barely a glance. Chuckles softly. The brain's tragicomedy. We're convinced we're center stage, when most of the world hasn't even bought a ticket. Why? Because your mind is a prisoner of its own perceptions. When you ache, you assume your grief radiates like heat. When you lie, you're certain your guilt flickers in your eyes. But the truth is, we are all bad translators. The storm inside you, the heartbreak, the quiet triumphs, loses its language the moment it reaches the air. Consider the last time you apologized, how the sorry clawed your throat, raw and jagged. To you, it felt like a monument. To the us listener, perhaps just another word in the wind. Leans closer, snow globe trembling in hand. This is the loneliness of hidden truths. We ache to be known, yet we are trapped in a dialect only we understand. But this illusion isn't arbitrary. Evolution wired us to obsess over how we're perceived. In tribal times, fitting in meant survival. One misstep, a mismatched smile, a flinch could exile you. So the brain became a paranoid poet, scripting soliloquies about how others see us, gestures to the fogged mirror. Yet like this glass, the harder you scrub for clarity, the faster the fog rolls back. Here's the twist. The same mechanism that isolates also connects. Studies show that others suffer the same delusion. The friend you think is judging your silence, they're too busy rehearsing their own. The lover convinced you'll reject their vulnerability. You're both trembling behind the same curtain, smiles faintly. We're all soloists in a choir, too deafened by our own voices to hear the harmony. But what if this illusion is a kind of mercy? Imagine if every thought were transparent. Every envy, every shame, every unsung love, naked to the world, chaos, madness, pauses, snow globe settling. The brain's firewall isn't a flaw, it's a gift. It lets us edit, refine, and choose what to share. Yet, in doing so, it strands us in a paradox. To be human is to long for connection, while clinging to the safety of solitude. Philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre once wrote, "Hell is other people." But perhaps hell is the chasm between what you feel and what you can express. The unbridgeable gap between the symphony in your skull and the muffled hum that escapes your lips. Let's try an experiment. Recall a secret you've kept, not dark, just tender, a childhood nickname, a recurring dream, a song that undoes you, whispers. Notice how it lives in your chest, vivid as a jewel. Now imagine whispering it to a stranger. Would they grasp its weight, its color, or would it crumble into just words? This is the curse and the cure. Yes, you are irrevocably alone in your mind. But so is everyone else. And in that universal solitude, there's a strange kinship, a silent pact. I will never fully know you, and you will never fully know me. And that's okay. So tonight, as you drift, consider this. The walls around your heart aren't prison bars, they're stained glass, filtering your light into patterns others might recognize, even if they never see the source. Is loneliness the price of consciousness? Or is it the space where empathy begins, when we stop demanding to be seen and start imagining the storms in others. Chronostasis, the elasticity of time. Have you ever lived a lifetime? In a single second, pauses, fingertips brushing the hourglass, a car swerves, a child falls. In that breath between disaster and deliverance, time doesn't just slow, it shatters. Minutes spill like honey. Heartbeats echo like cathedral bells. This is chronostasis, the brain's power to stretch and compress time, bending the clock into a shapeshifter. But here's the riddle. If time is elastic, what does that say about reality itself? Let's begin with a simple experiment. Glance at this clock. Gestures to the pendulum. Notice how, for a heartbeat, the second hand seems to pause, as if the universe held its breath just for you. That's not a glitch. It's a revelation. When your eyes dart rapidly, a flick to the clock, a flinch. From pain, your brain does something extraordinary. It rewrites history. During these split-second movements, called saccades, your visual system briefly goes dark. To hide this void, your brain grabs the first image after the movement and projects it backward, stitching time into a seamless loop. The second hand freezes because your mind is editing the film reel of reality, frame by frame. But chronostasis isn't just about clocks. It's the reason a watched pot never boils, and a daydream feels like time travel. During trauma, the amygdala floods with adrenaline, etching memories in hyper-detail. To your brain, those seconds aren't fleeting, they're monuments. Conversely, in tedium, your prefrontal cortex, the timekeeper, drowsily skips frames, letting hours vanish like smoke. Neuroscientists call this time dilation, and it reveals a truth as unsettling as it is beautiful. There is no universal clock. Your brain doesn't measure time, it narrates it. Like a poet translating chaos into meter, it weaves seconds into stories, stories that can balloon or crumple at will. Consider the stopped clock illusion. When you shift your gaze to a clock, the first tick feels longer than the rest. Your brain, anticipating the void of the saccade, backfills the gap with the post-movement image. That extra millisecond? A temporal mirage, a lie so elegant you'd never notice, unless you knew to look. But let's wander deeper. In 2007, a study plunged participants into virtual reality. They fell 100 stories, digitally, while sensors tracked their time perception. Result? The fall felt 30% longer than reality. Time didn't slow. Their brains zoomed in, layering sensory data into slow motion. This is survival's paradox. To stretch a moment is to control it. To compress it is to endure. Philosophers have long dueled with the time's illusion. St. Augustine wrote, "What then is time? If no one asks me, I know. If I wish to explain it to one who asks, I know not." Einstein, too, called it a stubbornly persistent illusion. But chronostasis forces a darker question. If time is clay in the brain's hands, are we too malleable? Imagine this. You're reading these words. But by the time your mind processes imagine, the present you're clinging to is already the past. Your consciousness is a lagging narrator, forever describing a world that's moved on, leans in, the hourglass sand now flowing sideways. You are not living in time, you're retelling it. Yet here's the twist. This illusion binds us. When lovers say, "Time stood still," or mourners whisper, "It feels like yesterday," they're not being poetic, they're confessing a neural truth. Time's elasticity is the loom on which we weave meaning, the reason a childhood summer can outlast a decade of adulthood. So tonight, as you lie here, consider this. The past is not fixed. The future is not distant. You are a sailor on a river that exists only as you row, each stroke rewriting the current, each ripple altering the shore. If time is a story, who is the author? And when the final page turns, does the tale end? or simply begin anew. The spotlight effect, the invisible audience. Picture this. You walk into a party. A stain blooms on your shirt like a secret. Instantly, your skin prickles. You know they're all staring, judging, whispering, dissecting, but here's the truth. Pauses stepping into the spotlight. The room is darker than you think, and the spotlight? It's only ever in your mind. This is the spotlight effect, the brain's cruel magic trick, convincing you that you're perpetually on trial, that every stumble, every quirk is magnified under an audience's relentless gaze. But what if I told you that audience doesn't exist? Let me unravel the illusion. In 2000, psychologists Gilovich and Savitsky, yes, them again, asked students to don a mortifying Barry Manilow t-shirt and enter a room of peers. The wearers braced for ridicule, certain they'd become punchlines. Yet, when polled, barely 20% noticed the shirt. 20%. Chuckles. The brain's tragic vanity. We're convinced we're the protagonist in everyone's story, when most haven't even read the book. Why? Because consciousness is a lonely art. Your mind orbits itself, hyper-aware of every heartbeat, every awkward gesture. This egocentric bias warps reality. You assume others share your inner spotlight, your self-scrutiny. But they're too busy nursing their own. Consider the last time you sent a risky text. How you agonized over its tone, its timing, certain the recipient dissected every syllable. Now, imagine their side. A buzz, a glance, a reply drafted between sips of coffee. No fanfare, no grand inquisition, just life. Gestures to the empty seats. The spotlight fades when you realize everyone's too busy rehearsing their own lines to heckle yours. But this isn't just social physics, it's evolutionary algebra. For our ancestors, social survival hinged on fitting in. A misstep could mean exile or worse. So the brain evolved to over-index on how we're perceived, erring on the side of paranoia. Better to assume 1,000 eyes than miss one pair. Here's the twist. The spotlight effect isn't a flaw. It's a fossil, a relic of when tribes were small and attention was survival. Today, in a world of billions, that same instinct strangles us with imaginary scrutiny. We edit our laughter, mute our passions, and shrink into crowd-pleasing silhouettes for an audience of ghosts. Yet, there's profound freedom here. Studies show that when people act as if no one's watching, dancing wildly, speaking earnestly, embracing quirks, they're perceived as more authentic, not less. The audience, it turns out, prefers honesty to polish. Smiles a moth landing on their shoulder. The tragedy isn't that we're ignored, it's that we cage ourselves fearing judgment from judges who don't exist. Philosopher Alan Watts once mused, "You are under no obligation to be the person you were 5 minutes ago." But the spotlight effect chains us to yesterday's performance. It whispers, "They'll remember, they'll compare." Yet memory is fickle, and attention is fleeting. The stain you obsess over? Forgotten before the next sunrise. Let's try an experiment. Recall a moment you felt exposed, tripping on a sidewalk, laughing too loud, crying in public. Pauses. The spotlight dims. Now, try to remember a stranger's similar moment from last week. Can you? Exactly. This is the secret. You are both less remarkable and more extraordinary than you think. Less because the world isn't watching. More because liberation lies in that very obscurity. When the imagined spotlight dies, you're free to glow or dim on your own terms. So tonight, as you drift, consider this. The audience was always fiction. The stage, a mirage. You've been dancing in an empty theater all along. And that's the most beautiful truth of all. Are we ever truly seen? Or is life a grand masquerade, where everyone's too terrified to remove their mask first? The Mandela effect, the fragility of memory. Raise your hand if you've ever sworn a moment happened, only to learn it never did. Pauses, lifting a glass shard to the light. Welcome to the Mandela effect. a phenomenon where memories conspire. Entire histories rewrite themselves, and the past becomes a choose-your-own-adventure novel. But what if I told you this isn't about false memories, but the collective ones, the stories we tell ourselves to feel less alone in the labyrinth of time? Let's begin with a confession. In 2010, thousands insisted they'd attended Nelson Mandela's funeral in the 1980s, sobbing at speeches, clipping obituaries. Yet Mandela died in 2013. How? Shatters the glass shard. It reforms into a dove. Memory is not a photograph, it's a palimpsest. A parchment scraped clean and rewritten, layer upon layer, until the original text is myth. The Mandela effect reveals a haunting truth. Your brain is not an archivist. It's a storyteller. Every time you recall an event, you don't retrieve it, you recreate it. Neurons fire in new constellations, blending facts with feelings, details with dreams. Like a game of telephone played across decades, each retelling warps the message. The Berenstain Bears become Berenstein, because our minds auto-correct the unfamiliar. The Fruit of the Loom logo loses its cornucopia because, well, fruit in a horn? Who decided that? Exactly. But here's where it chills. In 2015, psychologists at UC Irvine implanted false memories in subjects, convincing them they'd committed crimes, met Bugs Bunny at Disneyland, a Warner Brothers character in a Disney park? Impossible. Yet, the brain didn't balk. It embraced the fiction, weaving plausible details, the smell of popcorn, the feel of a cartoon glove. This is confabulation, the mind's desperate scramble to fill gaps with whatever's nearby, even lies. So, why do millions misremember the same lie? Blame the hive mind. Culture is a cauldron of shared stories. When Star Wars fans quote Darth Vader as saying, "Luke, I am your father," he actually says, "No, I am your father." The error spreads through parodies, memes, and lazy retellings. The brain, hungry for narrative coherence, adopts the cleaner version, the monocle on the monopoly. Man, a logical flourish, a top hat begs for aristocracy, and aristocracy demands a monocle. Oh, smirks. The mind is a playwright, always angling for a better punchline. But this isn't just about pop trivia. Consider the flashbulb memory, the vivid snapshot of where you were during a historic event. Ask someone about 9/11 and they'll describe the weather, the TV screen, the taste of their coffee. Yet studies show these memories corrode faster than mundane ones. The brain, desperate to make trauma meaningful, edits relentlessly. The memory feels sharp, but it's a blade honed by imagination. Philosophers have long warned us. Plato compared memory to a wax tablet, softened by time. Borges wrote of Funes the Memorious, a man cursed with perfect recall, driven mad by the weight of unedited details. The Mandela effect whispers, "Forget Funes. You are the rest of us, blessed, flawed, human, so let's play a game." Picture your first kiss, the color of the sky, the song playing. Now, imagine someone proves it never happened. Pauses, the mosaic shatters again. Would you unravel? Or would your brain, ever the diplomat, shrug and spin a new tale? Here's the secret. These collective delusions aren't failures. They're proof we're wired to connect, to smooth the jagged edges of reality until they fit a shared narrative. A monocle here, a cornucopia there, details sacrificed so we can say, "Yes, I remember too." If memory is the soil where identity grows, what blossoms when the soil is fiction? And when we gather to compare gardens, are we nurturing truth or something wilder?